How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my wild card picks video. In this one, I'm just going to go through the six wild card games we have, break down my thought process, how I think the games are going to go, and pick a winner for each game. I did go over my playoff bracket video, so I obviously picked kind of talked about all the wild card games already, but in this one, I'm just going to make a video specifically dedicated to the wild card round. So I will just dive straight in here. First game, we got Chargers Texans. I am picking the Chargers to win this game. I have a final score of 24-17 in the Chargers' favor. Although my podcast episode I recorded with my friend Dylan, we were talking about this game and he had the Chargers blowing the Texans out. I think he had a final score of 31-13. And honestly, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. And honestly, I kind of tempted to pick that to happen, but because I already submitted my original bracket, I'm just going to stick with my 24-17 prediction here. I just don't think the Texans match up very well with the Chargers at all. Their offense has obviously been struggling massively. Obviously, Diggs went down, and it's been struggling since then. Then Tank Dell went down, and they've only played two games since then. But against the Ravens, it was just a complete disaster. They didn't score any points. They got shut out offensively. The only 2 points they scored as a team was off of a safety. So literally, their defense outscored them, their offense that game. Then against the Titans last week, it was the Titans. You can make an argument the Titans are the worst team in football this year. And the Chargers defense, number one scoring defense in the league, beat out the Eagles by 2 points to win that award. Very well coached, just very disciplined, come in every week with a good game plan. Just a very well coached, well executed overall defense. I think the Chargers defense is going to have a really good game. The Texans offense is going to have a rough game. And that's going to be a big reason of why the Chargers defense the Chargers win the game. I do think the Texans defense is going to be able to keep the game relatively close. I think they'll have a good game, but I think at the same time the Chargers offense is going to do what needs to be done. Get a couple good drives, put up a decent amount of points. I have them scoring 24, but I do think the Texans offense is going to be able to keep it a close game. I feel pretty confident with the Chargers in this game, and I honestly could see them again blowing the Texans out, like Dylan and I kind of talked about. Well, what Dylan has happening, and yeah, I feel fairly confident with the Chargers. The Texans pull off the upset. Again, I actually feel decent that their defense is going to play well. It's just their offense. I do not see him in a good game. Their offense is going to have to just randomly have a good game, which, the Chargers I don't know. They're going to have to. Texans offense is just going to have a game similar to how the Bucs played in the second half of the game against the Chargers a couple weeks ago, and how the Broncos played in the first half of the game, that Thursday night game. Otherwise than that, the Chargers defense has been very stout, very well coached, well executed all year. I just don't see it happening really. But yeah, I'm definitely picking the Chargers. 24-17, as I said. Chargers win this game. Next game, Steelers Ravens. I'm picking the Ravens in this game. Let me see here. Yeah, I have 24-17 as the final in this one too. I think this is going to be closer than people think, though. The spread, I haven't checked it today. Maybe it was updated today, but as of yesterday, it was 9.5 in the Ravens' favor. It was up to 10, maybe I think 10 at the max, and it moved down to 9.5 yesterday. The Ravens could very well cover that spread still. I could definitely see them blowing the Steelers out. But I do think this game will be close because the Steelers know how to play the Ravens tight. It seems like every one of these games between these two teams are super tight, go down to the wire. Even the last one, the Ravens technically blew them out. You can say they won by multiple scores. It was a 7-point game very late in the fourth quarter, and then that pick six from Russell Wilson changed everything. And the Steelers had some injuries that game too. But for the Steelers, they're coming into the postseason ice cold, 4-game losing streak. Obviously, that is exactly what you do not want to happen heading into the postseason. What you do want to happen heading into the postseason is to go in red hot. That's exactly what the Ravens are doing. While the Steelers are on a 4-game losing streak, if I remember right, the Ravens are on a 4-game winning streak, and they've looked very good in their win streak. It's not like they're narrowly winning. I think it's been 4 blowouts, if I remember right. The defense has clicked into gear after kind of being a little up and down, like, not a typical Ravens defense. A lot of miscommunication, blown coverages, a lot of issues that we're not used to with the Ravens defensively. Seems like they've got that cleaned up. Zach Orr's calling the defense very, very well. Got the guys, you know, the issues and such cleaned up. The guys playing a bit more discipline, maybe. Ravens got to clean up the penalties, so that's been another issue for them all year. And certainly do not want to commit penalties in any game, especially a playoff game. Again, I don't think this will be a shootout. I don't think this is going to be super low scoring. I could see it being super low scoring, similar to like the first matchup. Obviously, the Steelers won that matchup. But yeah, so 24-17 is the final I mentioned. I think the Steelers defense, even though I have the Ravens scoring 24, I think the Steelers defense will play a solid game, be able to limit the Ravens at least a little bit. I just do not see their offense having much success, the Steelers. I don't know. At this 17, it feels like around there is what they've scored all year. I feel like their season average is probably somewhere in the low 20s, but 17 points to the Steelers is kind of like just how they played the whole year. It feels like offensively for the most part. Ravens defense red hot right now, just not a great matchup for the Steelers. Even though they do play the Ravens very tight and Lamar well. Lamar, I think, is 2-8 against the Steelers. So again, I'm picking the Ravens, but I definitely can see this game being closer than people think. If the Steelers somehow win this game, I would be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be completely shocked. If the Steelers win the game, I feel confident their defense is going to play well, but I think it's going to have to play a phenomenal game, like similar output to how they played in the first matchup, pretty much. And their offense is going to have to severely overperform how I'm expecting it to. Maybe not severely is a great word for that, but I think they're going to have to get touchdowns to the field goals, which again, that seems like an obvious statement, but for the Steelers, it's kind of been an issue for them all year, and especially a game like this where I think it might be a bit lower scoring than people think. Those extra points are going to matter, so that's the key for the Steelers there. I just am trusting the Ravens more at home, prime time in Baltimore. They're hot. The Steelers aren't. And I have the Ravens winning the Super Bowl this year, which is a bit bold. I actually feel a bit oddly confident that they're at least going to get to the Super Bowl. It's a little bold, I think, predicting they're going to win it, but still, obviously, they're going to win it. I'm going to have to stick with my prediction and have them win this game. So again, I have the Ravens winning this game 24-17 and moving on to the divisional round. Next game, Broncos-Bills, first Sunday game. First Sunday game. It's at 1:00 on Sunday. These playoffs to me are very more difficult to predict than in years past. I feel like I feel like most of the games are going to be close. It's kind of can go either way. This game, I do not feel that way. One of the few games I do not feel that way. I feel very confident with the Bills. I think they're going to blow the Broncos out. My friend Dylan picked the Broncos in the upset, which is definitely a super hot take. If Denver somehow pulls off the upset, I think their defense is going to have to really ball out, which is possible because obviously the Bills are kind of a run-first team. Denver is a really good run defense. They can cause some issues with the pass rush for the Bills, I think. I just think the Broncos offense is going to have a rough showing, and it's going to have to not have a rough game, obviously, if they're going to want to win, I think. Because I think their defense, the Broncos, is only going to be able to limit the Bills' offense for so long. I could see this playing out similar to how Baltimore did earlier in the year. Was kind of relatively close early on, and then the Ravens just completely opened the floodgates and just killed the Broncos the rest of the game from like the second quarter on. I could see this game being close, but I had the Bills winning fairly comfortably. I have them winning 31-20. I think the Broncos will probably be stuck around like 14, like 13, 14, 17, somewhere like that. Get a garbage time touchdown late maybe when the Bills are in conservative prevent defense, makes the score a bit more respectable. Something like that. again, if Denver pulls off the upset, their defense is going to have to ball out, and their offense, which I really have a tough time seeing this happen, is just going to have to overperform, put up a good amount of points. I just think the Bills' defense is going to have a good game. Josh Allen and company, I think, are going to have a good game, and I just feel fairly confident the Bills are going to be able to win this game comfortably. Again, 31-20, I had the Bills winning this game, moving on to the divisional round. Packers Eagles. Oh boy. So just talked about games that can go either way. This game to me, I honestly think this is close to a coin flip. I'm picking the Eagles to win. I have a let me check my notes. Where did I put this game? Oh, here it is. I have a 27-21 win for the Eagles in this game. Again, close to a coin flip for me. I would not at all be surprised if the Packers go into Philly and come out with a win. I have the Eagles going to the Super Bowl, but I would not be surprised if they got out in the first round. The Packers, to me, are an extremely dangerous team. I've been saying for a couple weeks, depending on who they match up with in the playoffs, I might pick them to go on a run. I am a bit higher on the Packers than most people are. I see, some people in most brackets are picking the Eagles. I would probably say in the brackets I've seen, probably about like 80%-ish, maybe around there picking the Eagles. But there is a decent amount, maybe like 1 in 5, 20% that are picking the Packers to win this game. I don't know. Even though the Eagles are at home, I think they're the more complete, the overall better team, more balanced team. They should win this game. Just something about the Packers. It just seems like when the stakes are the highest, they play their best ball, and they're just very well coached, execute well. Matt LaFleur, I just think he always comes up with a good game plan. Jordan Love, he plays his best ball the past 2 seasons when the stakes are at the highest, it feels like. I guess outside of that Minnesota game 2 weeks ago, that was obviously not a good game till very, very late for them when they started making a comeback, but it was a little too late for that to happen, for them to pull off the comeback. But it just seems like, I don't know, my gut's just telling me Packers are an extremely dangerous team. I'll even say that if Packers pull off this upset, I would not be shocked if they go to the Super Bowl, maybe even win it, even though they're a 7 seed. Even can't talk here. Even if they had beaten the Bears, they would have been the 7 seed still, because the Commanders had the tiebreaker over them. They would have been a 12-win team and at the 7 seed, a 12-5 team at the 7 seed. You can make an argument that's worthy of a first round bye. It was for the Titans a couple of years ago, and they were the 1 seed. They were 12-5. The Packers could have finished 12-5 and could have been the 7 seed. That's absolutely insane. And all their losses are to good teams, well, with the exception of the Bears. 5 of their 6 losses are to good teams. 2 to Minnesota, 2 to the Lions. So that's 4 losses right there to a 15 and a 14 win team. And then they lost to the Eagles week 1. And that's another thing. Week 1, you don't want to base too much off of the previous matchup, but week 1, it went right down to the wire. The Packers were going to attempt a Hail Mary to throw into the end zone to win the game against the Eagles that game. They didn't get it off because they blitzed Malik Willis, because that was Jordan Love got hurt 2 plays prior, and the Eagles ended up getting pressure on Malik Willis, got the sack. So they didn't get to attempt the Hail Mary, but it was a 2-point, if I remember right, a 2-point win for the Eagles. But that was kind of a weird game. It was in Brazil. The turf the field was bad. There was players slipping all over the place. It was just kind of a weird game. And both these teams, I think, are definitely better now compared to week 1. So, I don't think you want to base too much off the week 1 matchup, especially the playoffs are just another breed. It's a completely different breed. So, yeah, don't want to base too much off the week 1 matchup, I think. And, yeah, this is just very, very interesting. I mean, for the Eagles, it's definitely a bad draw as this for the 2 seed. Is a 2 seed, a 7 seed, it's supposed to be kind of, a team that probably just made the playoffs, like just by, the skin of their teeth. Probably, I don't want to say an easy L, but it should be a relatively you know, not laid back, but a game you win fairly comfortably. You shouldn't be stressing too much. Like, for example, an offense to the Broncos, I think that's kind of going to be the situation with the Bills against the Broncos, the other 2v7 matchup in the AFC. But the Eagles, they did not get a very good draw with the 7 seed is in the Packers. And the Eagles, I think, I could, even though I keep saying this game could go either way, I could see a scenario the Eagles just blow the Packers out and win by a good margin, too. I definitely could see that scenario. And the Packers should just lose Christian Watson for the year. Seems like he's always hurt, unfortunately, but that is gonna, you know, I'm sure Matt LaFleur, very good game planner, they'll be able to game plan without him, have some, have good success anyway. But obviously, it would be a boost if he was in there. They're missing Jaire Alexander. That would have been a big key for them, obviously, if he was there for this game. So the Packers are missing some guys. The Eagles are relatively healthy. They're getting Hurts back. Problem is Hurts, and not maybe not the problem, but the question is Hurts going to be rusty? He hasn't played in 2 weeks. And even though the Eagles were very good this year, one kind of flaw that they've had, maybe you can call it a flaw, it made me note of interest, is they always get off to slow starts, at least offensively, it feels like. It seems like every first quarter, they very much struggle to put up points. If that happens in this game, I can see a scenario where the Packers come into the game red hot, kind of like they did against Dallas last year, and they score touchdowns in the first couple drives, and the game gets out of hand quickly. I don't think the game will get out of hand if that happens. I do think if the Packers can jump out to an early lead, the Eagles will be able to cut into it and maybe come back and win, but maybe the Packers hold on. I'm not sure. That's another scenario in itself. But my point is that the Eagles start off slow. Hurts is rusty. The Packers, I think, that's going to be the Packers' key to winning, starting off hot. If their offense starts off hot and their defense too, I think that's going to be the key to them winning the game. If the Packers do win this game, I think their defense is going to have to play a bit better than I'm expecting it to, really limit the time possession. That killed them in the week 1 matchup. The end of the game there, the Eagles went on a super long possession to, nearly ice the game there. And, gave the Packers very little time to put together a drive. Just had to, run a couple plays, get in Hail Mary range at the end there. So that's going to be the key, is winning the time possession for the Eagles. Defense is going to have to overperform a little bit how I'm expecting it to, and the offense is going to have to overperform a little bit how I'm expecting it to. But yeah, getting off to a hot start, that's key for the Packers. Obviously, Eagles, you don't want to get off to a slow start, but I think especially in this game where the Packers are very capable of getting off to a hot start. I just think the Eagles defense is going to be the big reason they win the game. I think they'll be able to outperform the Packers defense by just a little bit at the worst, maybe. I think the Eagles offense, it may start off slow, but I think it's going to find its footing as the game goes on, like it has most of the season. And Saquon and A.J. Brown and Smith and company, and Hurts scrambling, things like that are going to be a bit too much for the Packers. Again, close to a coin flip game for me. I'm going to give the slight edge to the Eagles in this game. What did I say? Yeah, 27-21 final I have for this game with the Eagles moving on. Very interested in this game. Probably, for me, the hardest wild card game to pick. Either that or Minnesota and the Rams. The Tampa and Washington's difficult too, but not as difficult as this game, I don't think. But again, 27-21 final for the Eagles moving on. Very interested in how this game goes. Could see it going either way. Where are we here? Oh, here we are. Commanders Bucks. This is definitely another game that could go either way. I'm picking the Bucks to win this game. The reason I'm doing so, I think experience is going to really show in this game. As kind of questionable as the Bucks have been under Todd Bowles with big games that matter most, they seem to come out, or even games like that and games that they should win, sometimes it seems like they come out flat. The postseason at home last year is a good example where the Bucks came in I think the Eagles were better than them, at least on paper last year. They beat them in the regular season pretty convincingly in Tampa that year. They were at home, prime time. They came out, played like an experienced team, and they knocked off the Eagles. They blew them out, actually. I could see that scenario happening in this game, seeing the Bucs win big, but I think the Commanders obviously in a much better state right now than the Eagles were last year. The Eagles went into the postseason ice cold last year. They were a disaster after that 49ers loss that they had. The Commanders are on a 5-game win streak, so they're red hot right now too. It seems like their offense was kind of getting figured out. They were 7-5 on a bit of a losing streak. The offense didn't look good, but to their credit, since then they bounced back, 5 straight wins. The Bucs are maybe not red hot, but they're hot right now too. They haven't lost since the bye week, with the exception of that Dallas game. They have not lost since the bye week. Um, and they're getting a bit healthier on defense. They're getting Winfield back for this game. I just saw like a half hour ago, I got that notification. So that's a big boost for them. The secondary, they've been super banged up defensively. So that's a boost for them in the secondary. And again, don't want to base too much off of the week 1 matchup between these two teams. But Tampa won that game fairly convincingly, it felt like. The Commanders scored super late to make it more respectable. The Tampa won that game fairly convincingly. Obviously, the Commanders, I think, are a much better team now than they were week 1. I think you can honestly say the same thing for the Bucs, maybe, even though they balled out in week 1, especially their offense. But yeah, the Bucs are just, even though both teams are hot, the Bucs at home, prime time, more experienced team. Commanders very young, inexperienced. Obviously, Jane Daniels a rookie. My gut's just telling me the Bucs offense is a really good game and their defense is a good game. And the inexperience shows to the Commanders and the experience shows to the Bucs. So that's why I have a 31-23 final with the Bucs winning. At the same time, I could see experience not being much of a factor and Jane Daniels just going in there balling out, saying to hell with the inexperience. The defense balls out too. Could see that. I would not at all be surprised if the Commanders win. If they do so, I think their defense is going to have to play better than I'm expecting it to. And I think their offense, if the Commanders win this game, I think their offense is just going to absolutely ball out. I definitely could see this being a shootout. But I'm going to just predict the Bucs defense to have at least a decent game. So yeah, I'm going to say Tampa wins this game 31-23. It's my final score prediction. Bucs move on to the divisional round. Last wildcard game, Vikings-Rams. This is a very hard game to predict. This game is kind of close to a coin flip for me. The Vikings obviously coming off that bad loss against the Lions, definitely their most disappointing performance all year. Their defense, I don't think their defense played as bad as a defense that typically allows 31 points. They were kind of limiting the Lions offense for a bit until the fourth quarter. Then the Lions offense really found its rhythm and kind of piled onto the score. It's just their offense played obviously a horrible game. Darnold played without a doubt, I think, his worst game of the year. You can maybe argue the Jags game, Darnold didn't play well at all, threw a couple picks in that game too. Even though he didn't turn it over against the Lions, I probably would argue he played worse. And, it kind of brings up a criteria debate. But with the stakes being as high as they were against the Lions, I think Darnold definitely probably played a worse game than he did against the Jags. His worst game of the year is what I'm trying to say, most likely. He missed multiple receivers wide open. I'm a big Kevin O'Connell guy, but I don't think Kevin O'Connell called the greatest game. I do think he should have ran it a bit more than he should have. That's kind of one flaw I've noticed with Kevin O'Connell is he does get a bit too pass heavy at times. And not abandons the run game, but doesn't run as much as he should. But yeah, I am going to trust the Vikings to bounce back in this game. I don't see either team winning by more than one score. I think regardless of which team wins, it's within a one-score game. I have the Vikings winning this game. I think, let me check here. What do I have? Where's this game? Yeah, okay. Yeah, just want to make sure I got my score right. Yeah, I had 24-20 with the Vikings winning this game. I think this is going to be a super balanced game, really entertaining game. I think we're going to get a good, healthy, entertaining mix of good defense from both teams and good offense from both teams. I think both offenses will have good drives, have some, drives where they're forced to punt or turn it over, get stopped on downs, things like that. I think both defenses have some good drives where they play well. Super balanced game, I'm expecting. Back and forth game. Have not a shootout, not a complete low scoring game, but kind of a lower scoring game, I think. Obviously, these teams played earlier in the year. It was week 8, Thursday night. Vikings were up 7-0. Then, actually, they might have been down 7-0, but they scored a touchdown in their first 2 drives. And then after that, the Rams defense stepped up, held them to 6 points. The Vikings ended up getting screwed at the end there with that obviously missed face mask call on Byron Young that resulted in a safety and the Rams winning. I don't think the Vikings should have won that game anyway. They would have had to drive the length of the field, like 90 plus yards, I think, but under, with 2 minutes left. I think they only had like one timeout, two timeouts, something like that. Then they would have had to get a 2-point conversion. And the Rams defense, as I mentioned, was really playing a good game after the first 2 drives the Vikings had. So I think the Rams would have won anyway without that even if the Vikings did get that face mask call. Who knows, though? But the Rams defense has been balling out the past couple weeks. Their offense has kind of been the question mark, which is kind of the opposite of what we're used to with the Rams. With Jimmy G and the backups played a better game than Stafford and company have. Stafford and the rest of the offensive starters have been playing the past couple weeks. So that and that was against the Seahawks starting defense too. So that's kind of a little concerning with the Vikings defense obviously being one of the best in the league. Brian Flores, obviously one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, getting some head coaching interviews now. But at the same time, I could see the Rams offense kind of just clicking into gear, just playing a really good game. I don't know. I could see Stafford playing a really good game, just being clutch. The Rams offense was like unstoppable against the Vikings defense when they played that Thursday night game I was talking about. So maybe they have another similar performance, but I think the Vikings bounce back in this game. I think they're probably going to be pissed off at how they played against the Lions, how they got demolished. That was embarrassing for them, I assume. So, well, that was a voice crack. So, yeah, I assume they're going to probably be embarrassed, going to be pissed off. Not that, they need any extra motivation to play off. So, obviously, it's you lose, you're out. So, yeah, I think they're going to be, I don't know. I just trust them a bit more than the Rams in this game due to the Rams offense and Stafford looking a little questionable lately. The question is, Darnold played his worst game of the career, not the worst game of his career, but his worst game of the season, with the stakes being the highest in his career against the Lions last week. Obviously now the stakes are the highest, with this being Darnold's first playoff game. So is he going to shit the bed again? Is he going to have a bad game? And the Rams, which, again, their defense played well that game against Minnesota the first time after the first 2 drives, not shut them down, but very much limited them. So Darnold coming off a loss. He just played the worst game of his career, with the stakes being the highest. Now the stakes are even higher than that against a defense that kind of played him well and limited him to an extent the first matchup. That's a question heading into this game. But in honesty, between Brian Flores and Sean McVay, that's going to be a battle itself. Sean McVay, I think, got the better of Brian Flores the first matchup. Sean McVay, it's tough to bet against him in the playoffs. Really good offensive coach, obviously. But Brian Flores, really good this coach in general, too. Obviously, very good this year. That'll be a fun matchup going against each other. It's tough to pick against either one of them. But maybe you would lean McVay just because he has a bit more, I don't know, experience, I guess, than Flores. I don't know. Maybe not experience. Flores has been around for a bit, but Sean McVay, even though it feels like he's been in the league forever, he hasn't even been in the league 10 years. 2017 was his first, well, not the league, as the head coach of the Rams, I mean. Sean McVay's obviously been in the league longer than that, but I'm getting a little off topic here, but yeah, can definitely see this game going either way. The Rams win. I do think their defense is going to play a good game, but it's going to, I think, have to play better than I'm expecting. And their offense is going to have to overperform how I'm expecting. So even though I think it's going to be a healthy dose of offense and defense for both teams, I think the Rams offense is going to have to kind of have a similar output to how they did the first matchup between these two teams. But yeah, just defenses, honestly, I think you can say get close to canceling each other out with the output for this game. So that leads me to question, okay, which offense is going to do better? I mean, the Vikings offense, even though it shit the bed last week against the Lions, I trust more than the Rams offense. I just have a tough time, honestly, seeing either of these teams losing the wild card, but especially the Vikings, a 14-win team getting eliminated in the wild card round. That would be wild. Could definitely see it happening, but I'm going to trust them a bit more, give them the slight edge. As I mentioned, I'm going to trust them to win the game 24-20, move on to the divisional round. Yeah, let me make sure I didn't miss any. Yeah. All right, so I got all the wild card games here. So yeah, assuming all my wild card game predictions are right, which I feel confident, at least in terms of winners and losers, with all of them, with the exception of Vikings, Rams, and Packers, Eagles. Maybe I'm a little bit iffy on Commanders, Bucs, but Broncos, Bills, Steelers, Ravens, Chargers, Texans, I feel pretty confident those, especially the Bills, that those teams are going to win. But assuming my picks are right, that would bring us, when we move on to the divisional round next week, would be Chiefs, Chargers, Buffalo, Baltimore on the AFC side. Then on the NFC side, it would be Detroit, Minnesota, and Philly and Tampa Bay. So those would be a couple good matchups in round two. Some intriguing matchups there. But yeah, hopefully, you guys enjoyed this video. I will do this for the divisional round, the conference championship round, and of course the Super Bowl too. I'm just going to say something and I'm blanking now, completely blanking now. Be sure to check out my full bracket prediction video I made. Uploaded that yesterday if you're interested. I pretty much just followed the exact, the exact thoughts and winners, losers. That's that video too. I'm completely blanking out here. But I, went further. I did the divisional round, conference championship, and Super Bowl. So again, if you're interested, feel free to check that video out. Also, feel free to check out my podcast episode with my friend Dylan. I'd upload it in 3 parts because I record on Zoom and I have the free version, so it kicks you out after 40 minutes. So I'd upload it into 3 parts. But we both went over our playoff brackets, talked about the playoffs. I think it was actually, I'm very happy with how it came out. I think we did a really good job, actually. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. Again, hope you enjoyed the video. If you guys are betting, good luck betting. Good luck with your picks. Your team's in the playoffs. Good luck. Unless, no offense, I'm kind of pulling for the teams I picked here to win. Except I'm not a big Eagles guy, so I'm kind of pulling for the Packers. But even though I have the Eagles in the Super Bowl, so yeah, good luck. Your team's in the playoffs, I guess. Hopefully the playoffs are really good. I'm expecting a good wild card weekend. Gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. Definitely could see some upsets this week. Could, very much drastically change everyone's brackets. But again, I will finally end the video here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one. Take it easy, guys. Enjoy the playoffs.